What is up, everyone? It is time for the top 10 list for the Lord of the Rings set coming out in just about a week. And then we're going to have the early access event coming up this Friday, Thursday and Friday. And then the pre-release will be this coming weekend. So time to do a countdown of the top 10 cards I think will have an impact on Alchemy and Historic. And specifically, I'm mostly focused on Historic because, again, that's the format I play more than Alchemy. Um, but yeah, let's get into it. All right, starting us off at number 10 is Press the Enemy. So this is a card that I think looks pretty interesting. It reminds me a little bit of Commit to Memory, which puts a card or a spell into the second from the top card of the opponent's library. This is not quite at that level, but it does have other nice effects. So let's read the card. 4 mana, instant, return target spell or non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So it goes back to their hand. And when you cast an instant or sorcery spell, all right, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell with equal or lesser mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. So kind of like Yenne's expertise, you do something that you want, in this case, bouncing either a permanent or returning a spell that they just wasted their mana to cast back to their hand. And then you get to put something nice on the battlefield, like perhaps Narset, or could be Search for Escanta, or I don't know if they cast a really big spell, like some of the Reanimator decks will do like Physics Mastery into one of the ultimatum spells. If you bounce that, you just completely cancel out the ultimatum spell. And then you'll get to play something really huge. So you could even play like a Teferi or something like that. So I think this has the potential to be pretty good. Not going to be good in every single situation, but just doing a bounce and getting to cast something for free from your hand is a pretty big tempo swing in a lot of cases. That could be pretty nice. And you can hold this up. I mean, you don't have to use this all the time. You could be holding up some draw and this, or a counterspell and this, or whatever you want. This also is good against those mono white decks in Historic that have the Solemnity 9 lives. You can bounce one of those things back to their hand and potentially win the game from that, or at least get a big tempo swing that might help you win that game. So yeah, I think it could be pretty good. We'll have to see. I mean, if everything is a 1 mana spell that's in the format, then you're not going to really get to cast anything because it has to be less than what you bounced back. So I think it's going to be good against most of the reanimation decks, the control decks, and anything that goes kind of mid to late game. A little bit worse against the aggressive decks. But potentially you could just bounce a creature and or a burn spell and then cast like a cut down or a fatal push or something. Still gonna be decent in most situations. Okay, so that's number 10. Number 9, Stone of Erech. So 1 mana legendary artifact. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. I think this is something that you really want in a lot of formats, but usually the cost of exiling stuff is pretty bad. 1 mana for an artifact that you can later turn into a card doesn't seem too bad. It's a little bit slow, but in Historic, I think some people are just playing like Graveyard Hate at 1 mana already, and I think this could be better in certain decks than the other ones that are available. Especially because it only targets the opponent, so that means you can still do graveyard stuff yourself while messing up your opponent's graveyard. And I'm trying to think, like definitely good against like Cat Oven, though that's not really a thing in Historic anymore. Anytime you kill their creature, it's going to get exiled, so that's pretty good. So maybe this is better in like a control deck that also wants to use its graveyard for some things. I know I had some flashback spells and memory deluge and all those sorts of spells that you want to be able to cast from your graveyard, but you want to stop the opponent from getting their reanimation stuff. So yeah, probably that's the shell it fits in. It might be a sideboard card, but definitely gonna be a player somewhere. Okay, number 8 is Ministerath. This is a legendary land that's in the new set. I don't think you'll play many of these in your decks, and it would have to fit in a certain deck, but I think this will definitely be a player in some sort of mono white or maybe even Boros or red. No, not red green. White. Yeah, white something. White green, white red. Some sort of white based aggro deck because you need to have the requirement that you have legendary creatures in your deck. So I'm thinking like Thalia, um, Adeline, Skrelv, all those sorts of things would be legendary, which would let you get this in untapped. And then you need to attack with 2 creatures to get the draw spell, which I don't think is very hard in most aggro decks. So yeah, I think it's just kind of an auto include, and most of those is a 1 of or a 2 of. And if you get it mid to late game when your board is a little lacking, then you can use it to kind of uh, maybe you have 2 creatures and you could put more on the battlefield, but instead you just get the draw off it. I think it's going to be pretty annoying for the opponent to deal with and going to get you a lot of value. So, very good. All right, number 7, we have Delighted Halflean. This is kind of a mix between Llanowar elves and there's another elf that makes your green spells uncounterable. So it's kind of like that, although this also gives you any color when you have legendary spells. So it's almost like a Birds of Paradise for legendary spells. Yeah, it seems pretty good. It will have to get in the right shell. Maybe like a Gruul type deck that has, because Gruul tends to have a lot of legendary creatures. So you could have this on 1. Maybe have some spells that pump your creatures. Um, or even could be like a green-white deck. Green-white legend deck. You have the Ministerath we just talked about. You have some Anthem effects, which would pump up your creatures and make this a little bit more appealing. But I think since in Historic there's quite a decent amount of Azorius control, that having the uncounterable effect on this is not nothing, and ramping you. So yeah, maybe it could be like a Gruul with a lot of legends, or a mono green with a lot of legends, or even some new green white spell with a lot of legends. So it seems pretty good. I'm sure it'll find a home somewhere. Okay, we're at number 6, I believe now. So this is Stern Scolding. This was really hyped. After looking at it a little bit more, I'm a little bit less hyped about it. 1 mana counter target creature spell with power or toughness 2 or less. Definitely not going to be a dead card in 99% of the historic games, and I'm sure it's even better in like Legacy. Um, it would work against most wizards creatures. It will work against Grease Fang. It will work against, I guess, most of the like enchantment decks, the Auras decks. So it works against Lurrus. But it does work against quite a lot of things. I think the downside is it's going to be pretty dead in any non-creature matchup, which there's quite a few of those, like Dragonstorm or what's the ultimatum deck that uses Mizzix Mastery. But yeah, something like that, Reanimator or the Dragonstorm decks, those kind of decks. It's going to be pretty dead against that. So if you have this in the deck, I think you would need some ways to discard as well, so you can dump this if it's not working for you. But against creature decks, and especially since Historic is pretty creature heavy at this point, I think it would be pretty good. The only real crux is it doesn't hit Crucius, which is like one of the most annoying creatures to deal with in Historic, so it still dodges this thing, which is sad. But nonetheless, good card. Definitely good in like Legacy and those kind of formats, but probably still good in Historic as well. Number 5, I believe. 5. Hopefully I'm correct on that. We are Yeah. Number 5, Lost Island Calling. This is a card that I included on here because I think it has the potential to spawn a new deck, and it seems really, really interesting. So whenever you scry, you put a verse counter on Lost Island Calling, and for 6 mana, 4 blue blue, exile Lost Island Calling, draw a card for each verse counter on it, and if it had 7 or more verse counters on it, take an extra turn after this one. So you probably don't want to do that last ability until you get the extra turn. That way you can tap out and then get another turn to do something with your cards you just drew. Which means that you'll draw 7 cards and take an extra turn in most of the times when you activate that. And so the only real thing you need to have your deck doing is doing a lot of scrying. So I was trying to think how we could do that. I mean, we've got cards like Opt, which are pretty popular in Historic already, which has a scry on it. You got Fading Hope, which bounces a creature and scries 1. There's also like some interesting control type creatures or enchantments in the format, like Merit Lodge's Slumber is a card that was in like Modern Horizon that isn't Historic. Whenever it enters the battlefield or a snow permanent enters the battlefield, you scry 1, and then if you have 10 snow permanents, you get like an indestructible 2020 Black Avatar creature that's indestructible, and it's that one might be a little bit of a stretch, but it does scrying, and any snow permanent would scry, so you could have like snow lands in your mana base and do that and just get a bunch of scrying and quickly turn this on, because if you have that thing down and then you play a snow land and like a snow spell or a snow creature or something like that, then you're going to be getting 2 triggers each turn. Plus Opt is pretty cheap to cast, giving you the scry triggers. So there might be something there. And there's also a thing in the ice, which is in the format, which wants you to cast spells to flip it. So potentially you could have something like that where it's a thing in the ice, or some sort of dragon egg deck where you want to cast these cheap cantrips that also scry. You trigger this, you get an extra turn, you flip all your creatures, and you just go in for the massive damage. Yeah, but I think it's very, very possible that this is good and this could be a new deck, because there's, like I said, there's a lot of scrying already in Historic. I think a lot of control cards tend to want to scry anyway. So you could just put this in purely a blue white, or maybe a blue red shell that has a bunch of like cantrip cards that scry, and maybe a few creatures that want you to cast a lot of spells, and then just do this and take an extra turn and have a whole new hand to cast spells. So yeah, I think it's pretty good. We'll have to see if we can make the right deck for it, but definitely a very, very cool card. All right, number 4, Rally the Hornburg. 2 mana, create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens, and humans you control gain haste. Uh, Humans, mono white humans is a thing in standard. Definitely could be a thing in alchemy, and I could see a Boros humans deck, especially in Historic, because there's a lot of really good Boros humans, and we're getting a few more in this new set. We got a few really good humans in the last set, so definitely think somebody could make a Boros humans deck that uses this and just like destroys. I'm guessing you want to do like play a 1-drop human, play a 2-drop human, play a. You could either play a 1-drop human on turn 3 and then cast this, or you could wait till turn 4, cast a 2-drop and cast this. So you'd probably want some humans, like Benelish Marshall or something, which pumps out your whole team. So maybe turn 1, play just like a pretty good human. Turn 2, you play like Thalia. I guess you can't play Thalia. You can't use Thalia with this, but all right. Turn 2, you play some other human. Yeah. Turn 3, Benelish Marshall. Turn 4, another 2-drop, and then this. Now you're swinging in with like a pretty wide, pretty powerful board. I think there's a way to do it. And this card definitely is gonna like blow out some people, especially as you get like some anthems down, get some ways to pump your whole team, then having this like hasty damage, which might be like 2/3/3s with haste. Um, or if you played another creature, then you're gonna have like 3 creatures swinging in with haste with potentially some anthem effects going on. Then definitely gonna surprise a lot of people. So yeah, I think this card's good. You'll have to find the right shell for it, like Boros humans most likely. Or it could be mono red humans. I don't know. Possible. I guess you could do it with like some sort of human wizards mono red deck because we have um a few of the like prowess creatures, monastery mentor or something like that, which would want this. Hmm. Yeah, interesting. So I think there's a couple shells that could definitely use it. So that's why it's number 4. It seems pretty good to me. Somebody will make it work. Maybe we'll brew with it on the early access event. Okay. Drumroll coming in for number 3. We got Flowering of the White Tree. So this is a 2 mana anthem effect for white. So you probably have to play this in a mono white deck, maybe mono white humans, which we were just talking about. And you'll see that mono white is getting a lot of the good cards in this set, as well as the last couple sets. So it already has things like Skrelv, and Adeline, and a few other legendary humans. Um, I guess you can't use Thalia, or you can, but it's not as good as if you use Thalia with this because it will make it cost 1 more. But that aside, Skrelv and Adeline and whatever other legendary humans you have will now get the +2/+1 effect from this for 2 mana. And you have Ward 1, so they're harder to kill. Most of Historic is spot removal. It's not sweepers, except for the Azor's control deck. So that Ward 1 is going to be pretty impactful in Historic. And the second clause, non-legendary creatures still get +1/+1, means you can play a deck that isn't only legendaries. So it seems like kind of humans is the perfect fit, mono white humans, because you have quite a lot of legendaries, but not every creature is a legendary, so you'll still get benefit from both sides of this thing, and you'll just get that added benefit whenever you have humans. Seems like a slam dunk to me. Just a really good effect for 2 mana that mono white's definitely gonna want. All right, number 2, we got Forge Anew. So this is 2 and a white. Again, a white card. The white cards are really good. We already have the Band Hammer Times and the Boros Hammer Time decks in Historic. Always at the top of the format, and they have Sigarda's Welcome, I think it's called. Anyway, Sigarda's something to let them equip their artifacts, equipments like at instant speed. And this is another way to do it. And a lot of people have discussed that probably people will play 1 or maybe 2 of these to have like a 5th or 6th copy of those type effects. Yeah, it seems very good. Instant speed, 0 cost to equip something. You could even potentially play some more expensive equip costs because it's 0 now. It's not just discounted, it's actually 0. So yeah, seems pretty good. Ink Hammer is already really strong, so I think this is just gonna make it maybe unbeatable, but we'll see. All right, and coming in at number 1, the first place spot is Reprieve. So yeah, Reprieve is basically just a crazy good white counterspell in Historic. We don't even have that many good blue counterspells in Historic. So the fact that white is getting the best counterspell is kind of crazy. So return target spell to its owner's hand and draw a card. So yeah, I'm a little bit, I don't know. They talked about like, oh, we could print counterspells in white. Fact that they actually did it and it's the first good one that they put in Historic is a little bit sad for me. I feel like they really hate blue spells, especially in Historic. They always ban the good ones, like Brainstorm and Memory Deluge. Not Memory Deluge. Memory Lapse. memory lapse. So yeah, reprieve is like kind of a memory lapse. Oh man, yeah, it's pretty good. So it's gonna be in a lot of white decks. I could see even any deck that might be like a Coco deck. You could put a few of these in there just to like throw people off. Like they see you hold up mana and they're like, oh, they're gonna Coco me, and then sometimes you could reprieve to stop something crazy from happening, and just win the game from that. So yeah, it seems good. Definitely, I'm gonna play it in some Azorius control decks, so maybe Azorius control also gets better. But I'm really shocked that they put it in white, and yeah, wish it was blue, but it's fine. So Demir's not getting better. Doesn't really look like it. All the top 10 cards, doesn't really seem like it. But Azorius control probably gonna get a little bit better. So that's the silver lining. All right, well, that's my top 10 list. Let me know what you think. Is there anything I didn't put in my top 10 that you think is very good? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, check me out on the early access event. As I mentioned, we're going to have that on June 16th, 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. Eastern, until the end of the event, or until I pass out from staying up so late um, in my time zone over here in Japan. So yeah, let's have some fun there. Let's make some brews and let me know if you have suggestions in the comments. All right, go out there, have some fun. Till next time, see ya.